Ashton Jeanty and Omarion Hampton are the top 2 running backs for the 2025 NFL draft class. And on today's episode, we're going to break down our new mock over at Bleacher Report and tell you why we found a spot for both of them in round 1. We'll discuss this and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parsons. I'm an offensive draft analyst over at Bleacher Report. That's my guy, Keith Sanchez. He is the director of scouting with the Draft Network and 2019 national champion with those LSU Tigers, guys. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our every day. We got a mock draft recap, post-combine mock draft. We did a collective mock draft over at Bleacher Report. We're going to get into all of it, guys. The grading the running back landing spots, right? Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton. Did they both make the first round? And if so, where did they go? Top edge defender to team fits, and then impact defensive backs in this mock draft. Guys, let's get it started. Keith, let's go ahead and get into it. Keith, the running back landing spots in the round 1. We did a 3-round mock over at BR, and we would find a way to fit both running backs in. Our top 2 running backs, Keith. At number 22, the Los Angeles Chargers select Ashton Jeanty out of Boise State, and at 29, this is a team that I think is a sneaky running back landing spot in round 1. It is the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels. They just pulled off the trade for Deebo Samuel, right? And we all knew they needed another weapon and wide receiver. Now, we're not talking about 2021 Deebo Samuel, but still an effective player if used correctly, as we've seen, especially when he's healthy. The last couple of years of San Fran, putting Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina, into that offense, right? We kind of talked about it, Keith. Brian Robinson isn't a good fit for what Jaden Daniels and this offense looks like. He's just not a good fit for it. Yeah. The inside zone stuff, the QB zone read. He's not explosive or dynamic enough to really make defenses. Yeah, he's big, he's powerful, and he's a fall forward guy. But it's almost like that 3 yards in the cloud of dust old adage. That's what I feel like in this offense when I'm watching Brian Robinson tote the rock, where I feel like he'd probably be better off in the team that's kind of more not a lot of teams run but like just under center, giving him a full head of steam where he can hit the hole and make some things happen. Omarion Hampton in the backfield with Jaden Daniels is just electric to me. It's explosive, it's powerful. He can catch the ball out of the backfield and be a 3-down weapon. They need to upgrade this rushing attack, and I think that is the way to do it with Omarion Hampton and adding him in round 1.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%, DP. And you know me, I'm full gas on Omarion Hampton right now. So I think getting him at pick 29 is somewhat of a steal. Because he's for sure for me would be a top 15 prospect in this draft class, right? And then you look at him, like you said, with the Washington Commanders, it's been a minute since they've really had a dynamic running back, right? Like a guy you look at the balance of Jaden Daniels, like, okay, y'all are fully prepared to stop Jaden Daniels, and then now we're gonna run the football, right? And really to kind of have that balance. And you think about a young Peyton Manning, and when they had Edgerrin James, right, and just how important he was to, the Indianapolis Colts and their offense and what they was able to do. And I'm not comparing them a 1-to-1 as far as draft comparisons. I'm just talking about situational comparisons. I think that Omarion Hampton coming in could be really electric. And I know you talked about the addition of Deebo Samuel, but I look at it as this would be an even more important addition, right? Like I feel like Deebo is kind of, the old adage, right? He's on the back 9 of his career. And it, almost if he's not playing running back, jet sweeps, things like that. Not sure how effective he is. So I look at that and I say, you know what? Like Omarion Hampton here is probably just as important as adding an explosive wide receiver for this draft class.
100%. I think especially when you looked at what he was able to do at the combine this past weekend, Keith, we talked about it. We wanted to see him test. And, Jeanty said, I'm not going to test. I'll do everything at my pro day. Okay, cool. Omarion Hampton, 4.46, 1.54, 10-yard split, 38-inch vert with a 10-10 broad. And he nearly put up 20 reps. He put up 18 reps on the bench, right? He came in And I remember they panned to him while I think he was like getting his cleats ready, stuff like that. And he just looked like a young man that was at a job interview ready to nail it. That he was just locked in. It wasn't any smile. I don't know if I saw him smile the entire time. He was just locked into what he was doing, man. I think putting him, because the last time we saw a situation like this, Keith, and albeit Omarion Hampton's a superior player, remember that rookie year of RG3 and Alfred Morris, when it was like they took the league by storm in Washington. Yeah. It was that, Kyle Shanahan was the OC. I think Mike Shanahan was the head coach, and it was that QB zone read. Off of that, the deep ball play action. And like it was one of the more difficult running offenses to contain, because I don't think the league hadn't gotten used to that. Whereas like, okay, I can mesh point it and hand it to the running back, or I'm gonna take it and hit the edges myself. It wasn't the same type of run back to Minnesota Vikings. They saw the track speed of RG3 that rookie year, where he took it 80 yards and everything like that, and he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think putting Omarion Hampton in this offense does wonders for this team. And then like you said, even getting Debo, you can get another receiver on day 2 to bring more explosiveness. As we saw at the combine, there's some explosive receivers in this class. You can get somebody on day 2 to add to this offense. But the Los Angeles Chargers, Keith, and I think we've said it, there's no ideal landing spot for a running back in the top 20. Like, you know what I mean? People say Dallas. Tough. Dallas just lost Zach Martin. I don't know if you want to draft a running back and the interior offensive line took a big hit. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't Derrick Henry, 6'2", 250, that it doesn't matter what the O-line looks like. I'm still going to get mine. I don't know if that's what we're going to get from Ashton Jeanty. I want him in a good situation, and putting them in with the Chargers feels like the best situation, one of the best situations for him. Greg Roman wants to run the ball. That's his MO. We know Jim Harbaugh had JJ McCarthy and let him through 15 passes a game. Like, you know what I mean? He didn't care. He was like, no, we're running it. Like, Blake Corum, you get 40 touches tonight. You know what I mean? So you know that they're going to run the ball. And then you have a guy like a Justin Herbert, got Lab McConkey. They got to add a tight end. They got to add another receiver, got Quentin Johnston. This offense could come together in a great way by just adding 1 or 2 more pieces in receiving and then adding a Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, and DP, I think even when you think about Justin Herbert, right, you almost want to simply say it's time. It's time at the end of the day, right, to be able to make a playoff run, formulate this team so we can move. And then the thing is this, that, and we keep saying this, that do they need to change this team so it's not built that it's Justin Herbert a bust, right? He has to play like an all-pro. And if you get a guy like a Ashton Jeanty, DP, he's able to do that, right? He's able to put balance. You can say, hey, does Justin Herbert have his fastball today? Nope, he doesn't. Okay, cool. Let's transition. Let's pivot. Let's go ahead and hand the rock off. And what I like about Jeanty in this situation, right, is that we talk about Ashton Jeanty. Obviously, I put Omarion Hampton as my RB1, but I still believe Ashton Jeanty is very talented, right? It's not like, it's a big gap the other way. I just made the flip. And so I think that he's a dynamic guy. You talk about broken tackles, things like that. He's going to be able to get the job done. And then also you talk about being in this offense that's a run-heavy offense. He's going to have his opportunities to tote the rock 20-plus games and then be able to, put up significant yardage and provide balance. So I definitely like this situation. But DP, the star of this draft class, DP, could be the edge rushers, right? Maybe we could have 6, 7, 8 edge rushers in the first round. We're going to talk about where did those guys go. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on said action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my Detroit Pistons for a late-game comeback or picking Cade Cunningham to hit a clutch late-game 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 back in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 $100 back in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Best edge to team draft fits in our latest mock draft over at Bleacher Report, Keith, and being the part of that conversation, like, yeah, the combine played a little bit of a role to where some of these guys landed. At number 3, the Tennessee Titans got Abdul Carter. If you haven't checked out the mock, please go to bleacherreport.com. You can check it out. We had the Tennessee Titans trading down from 1 to 3 with the New York Giants. The Giants got Shedeur Sanders. Titans got Abdul Carter. Another edge rusher came off the board, and it was at pick 11. The San Francisco 49ers selected Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. At 15, the Atlanta Falcons finally subscribed to DP's way of drafting and got James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Very next pick, Keith, the Arizona Cardinals got Mike Green out of Marshall. And then you scroll down a little bit more, and then you get 27, the Baltimore Ravens doing what they do, standing pat, watching the board, and picking good players, getting Jalen Walker out of Georgia. At 28, very next pick, the Detroit Lions select Mykel Williams out of Georgia. And at pick 32, the Philadelphia Eagles select Princely Uman-Milan out of Ole Miss. Keith, let's talk about it, man. We know Abdul Carter. Like, if the Titans already talking about trading Harold Landry, that kind of signals like, hey, maybe we are going to trade out and select Abdul. So if they can knock off that trade, get a next day 2 pick for Harold Landry, then replace him with Abdul, hey, all systems go, right? But let's go to Shamar Stewart, Keith, because it's the combine reaction part, mock draft, and for him to get all the way up to 11, I think it's going to be high for a lot of people. It's crazy, Keith. I've never seen a guy test as well as he did and still not have the fans in the draft community, because it feels like people are just like, nah, I'm not going to be fooled again by another big athletic guy that's just raw and doesn't have a full skill set yet.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily blame them all the way, DP, because we've seen this story again, right? And the Raiders, they managed to do it twice, with Cleveland Farrell and Tyree Wilson, right? Not to mention there are other guys out there. Like there was we talked about it. There was a period of time where Yator Masgrados, right, was supposed to be the high guy. And that was 2021's draft class, I think, 2020, 2021.
It's been a minute.
And yeah, it's been a minute, and that hasn't quite necessarily played out or panned out. And I agree at the end of the day that there should be some, hey, let's make sure that we do our due diligence. And you know me, DP, I'm a show me guy, right? That's how I say with my draft prospects. I need you to do it for me to say that you could do it, right? Especially when you're talking about picking in the first round, right? I want that projection to be as seamless as possible, because I know exactly what you can do. I think, you talk about and let's all, for our listeners, I mean, put the numbers out there, right? I think it's a sack and a half the past 3 years, like a sack and a half each year or something like that.
Maybe did he have 4 this past season? I think he might have had 4, but it's not. He didn't have the production.
Yeah, the production was.
Oh no, he had a sack and a half this year. Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Wow, I thought he had 4 of them this year. That's crazy. No. Yeah,
I think Scourton had maybe 5 or 6 or something like that.
That's right. You're right. Same team, different player. Yeah.
Good. Right. And so I think that becomes a difficult part, is that you have to project the entire thing. As far as not only the second half. If you're picking at pick 11, you're projecting 12 sacks, right? Because of this, you want him to be you're still talking about wanting to draft a Pro Bowl / All Pro type guy, and to go from a sack and a half in college to 12 sacks in NFL, obviously that's a hefty leap. And not saying that he's not capable, because you look at all of the physical tools, he's definitely capable of doing it. But I want to ask this, DP, that if you're the San Francisco 49ers, and obviously we have more edge rushers to get into, but if you're the 49ers, if you potentially thinking about moving on from Bosa, right? Because there's been rumblings of that. Is this the fit? Like, is this the guy that you want to, I guess, kind of make the transition with?
No, not at all. Not if you're moving from Bosa. I think like when we did the discussion, after the combine, and it was like the mindset was like, okay, they need a guy opposite of Bosa. And I felt like, during the conversation, it was
Well,
a
yeah, I
very
would say
thorough
that too,
conversation.
right? But yeah,
Yeah,
and maybe let
like
me not act like I'm reporting that they're trading
no,
Bosa.
you're
That's
good,
not
you're
what it
good.
is,
No,
but
no,
it's a
it's
trend. I feel
been
like if the rumblings are, hey, draft the edge rusher, it's two things,
yeah,
right? Is that one, you want this guy to come be a complementary piece, and then also Bosa is the older prospect. So at some point, right,
true.
you
Good
would
point.
think that
Yeah.
the transition will be there at some point.
And you gotta hope that because they brought Robert Saleh back as the DC, you gotta trust in your coaches, and you gotta trust that the rest of the guys in the defensive line, like a Nick Bosa, can take this young man underneath their wing and help him get to where the fit. I mean, because get the numbers. Well, he ran 4.59 in the 40, 1.5 18-yard split, 40-inch vert, 10.11 in the broad. He came in at 6'5, 267, 34-inch on the arms. Like he just outstanding, like specimen. But like you said, certain positions you guys show me, right? And for me, Keith, at 15 and 16, these guys showed me enough to where that these are good fits for me. I think the Atlanta Falcons, there's a lot of talk about James Pierce and the whole off the field stuff. Listen, one thing I always do every draft is I expect somebody to have character concerns that nobody saw coming. So this just is what it is. I can't confirm or deny what's what. But if everything is clear and the Falcons feel comfortable getting James Pierce Jr. to be that fastball off the edge, and then also you got to think about they get Braylon Trice back from last year's draft that got hurt. I think either in preseason or training camp.
Yeah, I think it was. Yep, it was early.
Like you get him back now. You got Rook, and the guys on the interior, putting James Pierce Jr. as that fastball guy. Like now you can see, because they were tied for dead last in sacks again. They had 31 sacks all of 2024. Their secondary was solid, right? Like getting Jesse Bates and everything like that, and the safety group and AJ Terrell, like those guys did their job. But quarterbacks had a lot of time back there because they couldn't get to the quarterback off the edge. I think James Pierce Jr. helps with that. But then Mike Green, like, the Cardinals getting your guy from LSU, BJ Ojolari, back. They brought in Baron Browning that they traded for. I was expecting to probably try and give him a contract extension. Darius Robinson, and then adding Mike Green. Like, this is what you kind of need in the sense to, hey, we know that Geno Smith is going to throw the ball. We know Brock Purdy's going to throw the ball. We know Matthew Stafford's going to sling it all over the yard. We got to be able to get in the backfield. We got to get these third and 8. If we did our job on first and second down, we got to have a package of guys that can get after the quarterback. I think Darius Robinson rushing from that 2-eye to 3 technique, on third downs, and having BJ back, that fastball, having Mike Green back, that speed to power guy. Baron Browning, also a guy that you can work into the mix. I think this is a good situation for the Cardinals if you're able to get a guy like Mike Green, whose stock has been rising, albeit some. I mean, I think he addressed it at the combine, but like some off the field stuff from Virginia in this past and things like that.
Yep, no, I agree, DP, and I think like I agree with you that both of those are good spots for edge rushers, right? You're talking about Arizona, and then you're talking about Atlanta. Real quick, DP, I wanted to ask you the thought process with, and not even the thought process, but is the value of Jalen Walker, because I see him at 27, right, behind some other guys. Was it a height weight situation, right, from the combine and the measurements and things like that? I wanted to ask you on him because I know that you really like him as a prospect, and I know it's a collective thing, but at pick 27.
Yeah. If I remember correct, I think it was like the height weight situation with him, but also, when you have our guy Jihad Campbell go out there and just blow the combine out of the water, right? Like, and he has a taller, more lengthier frame. I think Jalen Walker came at 6'1", 243, 32 inches on the arm. And I mean, I listen to his it's crazy because I always do this when I'm listening to guys talk or I see how guys play. I'm like, man, he feels like this type of player in this team. And hearing him talk about being violent, being physical, different. I'm like, yeah, that dude sounds like a Raven. You know what I mean? Like this sounds
that's why
like
I'm not out on Jalen Walker. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Sounds like a Baltimore.
Yeah, the dude wired different.
No, and you can see it like when he said it, like he had like a little glimmer in his eye, like, yeah, that just made me happy. Like I like to hurt people. And it was like, like he definitely fit that AFC North type of style. You know what I mean?
the old movie, the little giants.
Oh
And
yeah.
was it not Icebox? I think it might be Icebox. I can't remember his name, right? He's like Spike like the hit, right? That
Yeah,
type of thing.
no, bro. That's 100% what it is. And I think with Jihad Campbell, because I think Jihad went to the Bucks because he's like that linebacker edge
Yeah, and I
hybrid.
like
He
that
went to
fit.
the
Yep.
Bucks. And I think that was the spot we've been putting Jalen this entire time. So now, like with Jihad taking that spot, Jalen slipped down the board just a little bit. And because we don't have the testing on him, we don't know exactly how fast and explosive. But I mean, you watch the tape, you know that he's got speed. But man, I think him falling to Baltimore, yeah, run the card up and just say, hey, you guys messed up by letting him fall into our hands. Because now this is a guy that, and I think I'm not breaking news either, Keith, but there was a tweet this during the combine. Odafe Owe tweeted out, I don't think he's tweeted in like a long time. He tweeted the peace symbol, like the two fingers, like chucking the deuces. And I don't know what that means. I'm just like, are they about to trade him? Like, they've been talks about like the Baltimore Ravens probably being involved with some trades that I had heard, but I was like, nothing materialized just yet. But if you trade Odafe Owe, now you really need an edge rusher. Jalen Walker being a perfect guy to step in, and he brings more as a prospect than Odafe did. Odafe was a height, weight, speed guy. We know that Jalen Walker knows how to get to the quarterback.
Yep, with DP, it's only right we end this podcast off with talking about the back end, right? In the back end, talking about those defensive backs, man. In the landing spots, we had a couple safeties go really high. So I can't wait to get into that conversation. So coming up next, we're talking about the defensive backs in this draft class. Where did they go? I'll have this conversation.
Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and everyday shot for being our everydayers, guys. Defensive backs and the impact guys from the combine that landed in the round one of our mock draft over at Bleacher Report. At number 9, we have Malachi Stark, safety out of Georgia. At 13, we had Nick Emanwari from South Carolina going to the Miami Dolphins. And then you scroll down a little bit, we get Jahdae Barron, cornerback out of Texas, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Green Bay Packers selecting Azariah Thomas out of Florida State. I believe that is all. Oh, yeah, we get Will Johnson. I'm sorry. Will Johnson at number 7 to the Jets. Keith, let's start there. Will Johnson, because I think DJ Reed is supposed to be leaving through free agency. Everybody's expecting him to get paid somewhere else, things of that nature. And if that happens, and we everybody's been projecting, Will Johnson's probably out of sight, out of mind. He didn't play much this year. He might slip down the board. If I'm the Jets and he falls to me at 7, oh yeah, I'm not even running the card up. I'm just calling Goodell and say it's Will Johnson. Like, you don't even need my card. Just here, I'm calling him on the cell phone. It's Will Johnson. We're picking Will Johnson here, and you put Will Johnson opposite of Sauce Gardner, and Will Johnson is the more technical man cover guy, where Sauce is more of the cover 3 long guy, the catch point, things of that nature. I think that really gives you a nice contrast of styles to where you can mix and match, run combo coverages, do different things of that nature. And then you still have a good defensive line that can get after the Josh Allen, get after the Tua Tagovailoa, get after Drake May. I think that will be a home run pick for them, especially if they're one of the teams that came out of the combine, reported them trying to move up to 1. That's going to probably be a very costly thing to do, is to move up to 1, unless you say, hey, Tennessee, we still got Aaron Rodgers or we got Devontae Adams and stuff. You try to throw some of that in there. But I think if they stand pat at 7 and get Will Johnson, that's a home run pick to me.
Yeah, I think it's a necessary pick. And if your defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, you're like, listen, I just left Detroit, where we didn't have corners for a minute. I'm not creating the same problem, right? Like, I've been down that road before. I am not doing that.
Especially when you especially when you in the control seat. You're not letting that happen.
Yeah. No, you're not doing that, right? And he played cornerback, right? Former defensive back. So he understands, and I'm more than sure he valued the defensive back position. DP, where I wanted to go was where these safeties were drafted. We had Malachi Starks pick 9 to the Saints, right? And then Nick Emanwari 13 to the Miami Dolphins. Can we start with Nick and just the thought process? And then I don't think we've ever had our evaluation of Nick conversation on here.
No, we have. We're going to have a very in-depth one now that he's completely destroyed the combine.
Mhm.
With Nick, man, like, you know, Javon, I believe both of their safeties, Javon Holland for sure, is headed to free agency. Of course, they have to figure out what they're going to do there. But so it's like, we talked about it, it's like, man, if they lose Javon Holland through the free agency market, which, you know, free agency comes before the draft, if that happens, this makes a lot of sense to add a guy like a Nick Imanwori at 6'3", 220, 32.5-inch on the arms, ran 4.38, a 1.49 10-yard split, 43-inch vert, 20 reps on the bench, and 11.6 on the broad. His ability to play from two high shells to work down as that strong safety in the box, be a +1 in the run game, but also he has that. I think I said it on Friday's pod. Like, people remember Obi Melanfonwu coming out of UConn was supposed to be quote unquote the tight end eraser. Like, this guy has the actual ability and physical traits similar to him to be a guy that can match up against tight ends. And you think about Buffalo, Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Not really sure who's a tight end in Miami right now. Jay had Jonnu Smith, I think. I think they had Jonnu Smith and everything like that. And then the Jets don't really have a tight end. But nonetheless, he can match up with different skill sets and just be kind of a chess piece for that defense with his strength, his size, and his athleticism. If they lose Javon Holland, they got to figure out how to fill that need. And Nicky Monward can do some of the similar things that Javon Holland can do.
Yeah, and then you look at the Saints, right? Wanted to talk through that one. The Saints with Malachi Starks. Just is that I'm gonna say their biggest need, right? But I guess when you fall on the board, we're just that high on Malachi Starks and what he could bring to the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, it was how high we have him graded. Then there's like the Tyrann Mathieu situation, like maybe they talking about maybe cutting him and stuff like that. And it's like, man, like you guys, that's crazy to lose Tyrann Mathieu. You trade away Marshawn Lattimore. It seems like you're taking a youthful route in your secondary. You know what I mean? Probably got Paulson Adebo. I forget. I'm blanking on my guy's name. He plays nickel and outside corner. Alontae Taylor. So, like, you know, having those young guys, putting the Malachi Starks and putting him in the role where he's used best. Not what Georgia was doing with him this year. And Georgia used him as like the nickel hybrid out of necessity, right? Like, if you can leave him as free safety, let him play on top of the defense, you know, I think this is one of the phrases that you coined, he can make wrong things right. And it's like, you know, he's that type of player. And I think even with the 4-5, we know the instincts of what he brings can absolutely help with that. So I think that was more so the thought process when it came down to him. You know, just putting him there high. He's our highest graded safety, one of our highest graded players. And then that fit to potentially replace Tyrann Mathieu. Or if you keep Tyrann Mathieu, you can kind of use Tyrann Mathieu similar to Budda Baker, where he's playing nickel closer to the box, just kind of what we've seen from Tyrann his whole entire career, just being the versatile player in your secondary. So I think that played a big part. Keith, Jahdae Barron to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I tried to lobby for a receiver here, and they was like, well, they do need a corner. And I was like, fair. You know, that's fair. I guess we can go there. I definitely wanted a receiver at the spot for whoever's at quarterbacks. And the reports of the Steelers are favoring Justin Fields, which is wild, right? Like, you know, you had Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. You started Justin Fields, then you benched him for Russell Wilson. Now you're saying, you put Russell Wilson in. Now you're saying, you know what? We favor Justin Fields as a free agent. Okay, that makes no sense to me, but nonetheless,
I'm confused. I'm
very confused,
especially if you're bringing back the same OC, right? Like, there's like, wait, why
Arthur
did he
Smith,
win the job last year, right? And he kind of did win the job, but then y'all told him he didn't do a good job, and then now you're the guy we want. So, if you're Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I'm kind of nervous, but I think that's why obviously this free agency is going to be so important into what they do, right? And then with the Pittsburgh Steelers, historically, they've tried to kind of piecemeal this defensive back, this secondary situation, especially the corner, right? Like, they seem like they are full gas on 1-year rentals, right? At the cornerback position. I think that's going to be able to, you know, be a tall tale for the cornerback position. But DP, Indy, the NFL Combine, it always shakes things up, and I think this mock draft was a clear representation of that. But that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listener is greatly appreciated here over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. And guys, listen, on tomorrow's episode, we're going to kind of put a bow on the NFL scouting combine. We want to talk about the biggest winners, man. We're going to talk about the biggest winners overall. We had the O-line guys did well, all of that on Sunday. So we're going to talk about the biggest winners from the combine on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.